Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Javier Santos of the House of Purpose. Javier, it's awesome to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
No problem. Super excited to have you on. And before we jumped in, I want to read a little bit more about Javier so you can hear about all the awesome things that he's doing. And Javier was born and raised in Mexico City, and he started his career in the corporate world working for large multinationals. He then moved to the USA to get his MBA from UT Austin and decidedly to permanently move to Canada in 2005. Javier has built a stable and happy life in Toronto until he turned 50. He then decided it was time to reinvent himself and fulfill a lifelong dream of becoming an entrepreneur. In 2015, Javier partnered up with a mental health expert, and they both founded the House of Purpose to help employees put their emotions to work. Javier, are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
I've never been more ready.
Awesome. Let's do it then. So I wanted to kick everything off by rewinding the clock a little bit, hear a little bit more on what I touched on how you got started. Could you take us through your CEO story? What led you to get started with your business?
Yes. So I was working for corporate, and I always had this dream of starting my own business, but I never found something that really made me so passionate. I tried things like, I think at one point I wanted to start an ostrich farm, which I'm glad I didn't. But it's when I met Marco, who's our chief clinical officer, and we started seeing that there was a big opportunity by bringing the mental health world to business. And I think part of how people understand things right now is that we are not, separate smart in terms of IQ and EQ. So instead of thinking that you have both logical and emotional skills, it's more like we first feel and then we think. So what you feel is even more important than what you think.
Yeah, that's extremely important.
Yeah, so we looking at this space, we started seeing that the issues in the workplace were just getting worse in terms of what's emotional. I'm talking about stress and conflict and engagement. And there wasn't really a robust solution at the same time that we saw so many things coming out from affective neuroscience and cognitive neuroscience and psychology on how our brains and minds work. So things like, how you are unable to be creative and resourceful when you're afraid were not well understood. So in the corporate world, it was like you had to be at your best performance ever. And if, God forbid, if you were, a slave to your feelings. And we just can't be like that. That's how, machines work. We are always at the whim of our feelings. So act is more like feel so that you can think before you act. So we started this company with that, idea in mind. And, we've developed a solution, and now we have clients, and we're seeing how we're really helping people be happier and more productive. And it's just like COVID brought everything to disruption, but it just knocked down the walls of stigma for mental health at work. So now we talk to our clients, and they're, we don't have to convince them about how important emotions are. We go directly into talking about how we're going to help them, right? The discussion on ROI is not even there anymore, because what's the cost of not having something like this? So I'm talking about a company that we started for one environment, but that we really were creating for this new environment unbeknowingly.
Yeah.
So I feel more than fortunate. I feel incredibly responsible to make this happen, right? Now I have no excuse anymore to fail.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I definitely appreciate you for following through and creating the business and doing all of the very much needed work. And obviously, if you had decided to do the ostrich business, we would have had an entirely different conversation. But I love, obviously, that you talked on, working on this and how important it is. Because I think even when we first connected, I mentioned and I talked about how I feel like, I don't even know if there ever is enough kind of mention and information about the kind of the human aspect of business, and a lot of times the stresses, and obviously we're all experiencing that stress and how to deal with that and what exactly that looks like. So I appreciate, all the work that you're doing and helping out and empowering these businesses to be aware and responsible related to their own personal kind of mental states, but also the people that they work with. So I know you touched on it a little bit. Could you drill down a little bit deeper into how exactly you help to work with and support these organizations and the people within them?
Yeah, so a couple of things that are important to understand is that if I try to teach you geography, I can just give you, a book or a YouTube video. When we talk about emotional skills, when we talk about you learning how you are resilient or you discovering how you are self-aware, these are things that we discover, we don't learn, right? And it's goes a little bit like this. So I have an interaction and then go back and sit down and think about it and reflect on my experience doing this. And then I see what worked, what didn't, and I have to try again. It's a little bit like riding a bicycle, right? Mm-hmm. So this is not the kind of thing that you can train or that you can help people learn in a webinar. This is something that requires a confidential, private place with someone that knows what he or she is doing for you to kind of go, how did that go? And why am I doing this? Or what is it about my behavior? What does it says about me? And your mentor will help you discover all that so that you discover your needs. So you say, oh, I think I have to be more empathic. And then you try different ways of being empathic, fail a few times, and then kind of go back and say, oh, okay, now I'm getting it, right? So we go through a process where we engage with individuals for 6 to 8 weeks. So that's the time it takes for someone to first, trust in us, right? Because you're not going to trust just anyone. So we build that relationship over the first couple of sessions, and then we go into like a more deep discovery stage where people start seeing themselves in a different light. And then we go into, okay, so let's try to move to a different place in terms of how can you be more resilient, or how can you solve this conflict, or how can you self-motivate, right? And now that we're all working from home, we're starting to see way more opportunities to do this in terms of how to use self-management and workplace integration. Like if you're going to work from home, now your office is your basement, right? So how do you make sure you get up in the morning and, brush your teeth and keep hydrated and do exercise, right? Because not everyone has that, self-discipline, if you will. How do you make sure you integrate your workplace, even with your family, so your kids know they cannot interrupt in the middle of the meeting unless something happens, right? So what's that exception? These things that we've never done, things like ergonomics in your basement, all the way to relationships, to engagement, to just basically well-being. How can you prevent depression from set on, especially now? There's a lot of things that we can do. And, that's one of the things I focus on right now is how do I avoid depression from setting in now that I don't have the gym and the yoga? So, we all went crazy for the, home baked bread and things like that, which was good for an exception, but now this is here to stay. So how do I keep a, physically and mentally healthy lifestyle when I am basically my own boss for a lot of things, right? For practical purpose in a lot of areas, right? And how do I live my company's culture when I don't even know anyone else or I don't go anywhere? Yeah. So, the challenge is even bigger, right? Like the ante has been up. So we need to pay attention to these things. And, there is different ways of doing it. We like our way. We think it works. Our clients are really happy. The interesting thing is sometimes they cannot put it in words because I feel like what we're doing is so new. So people just refer to your sessions, right? Or your coaching. And that's good for me as long as they recommend it. but it's, we sometimes feel that we're crazy, and we started with a concept that people were scratching their heads like, can you tell me again what you do? So we spent a lot of time trying to, put it in terms that we could sell it. But now the world has changed, and now we feel it seems that we were, working in the background for something like this because it fits so well. So I'm very excited. At the same time, I'm as afraid, as anxious as everyone else in this world. Yeah.
But I love how you described it, like obviously, incredible work that you do, but you said that it's incredible responsibility as well, because as you mentioned, like all those different scenarios, and this has obviously been one of the more, disruptive times, if not the most disruptive time, at least it has definitely been for me, because it has an effect this pocket of the globe or this state or this street or whatever. It's literally disrupted every single person in some form, shape, or fashion. And I think that having awareness when it's brought at the forefront or right into your front step of, things like depression, of emotional intelligence and understanding exactly what your emotions are and being in tune to all of those things, and how these new scenarios of being able to work out where you're also working from a 9 to 5 and then also potentially having to homeschool your children, all these different scenarios have disrupted everything. So I think I love the work that you do, because so many times people put everything kind of on the back burner. They don't really bring it to the forefront. They don't discuss it. But now is a time where you actually have to have these conversations, because I guess the mental state of us as individuals, but us as a society, is kind of hanging in the balance of what we do and the decisions that we make on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and as a business owner, sometimes I think the hardest thing to do when you're an innovator is to knock down the old guy, right? Like to become, you always become sort of like a solution for something. So unless you're completely new, it's like you have to take away from somebody. And I think the world, the way things are going in the world, everything is changing. So we're going to see entire companies and industries go bankrupt.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think there is an appetite for change. There's an appetite, especially in employees, for saying like, okay, I don't want to be a corporate slave anymore. How can I be, productive and happy and healthy without, and have a good job and a good career at the same time? And I think companies are saying, okay, now the game is changing. So no more revolving door of people changing jobs, because that's not practical. If you lose your job, it's going to be way much harder to get a new one. So now you're going to get stuck with your same people. Good.
Yeah.
The good ones are going to stay. That's great. But the bad ones, or the ones who need help, because I don't think there's good and bad employees. I think there's just some people that need a little bit more support.
Yeah.
But now you can't just keep playing the revolving door. Now you're going to have to fix it and help them. And people want to help, and they don't want to have the same, old habits, right? And we're talking about, from prejudice to being overworked to the way you talk to your colleagues, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I wanted to ask you now for what I call your secret sauce. And this could be for yourself personally or your organization, your business, but what do you feel kind of sets you apart and makes you unique?
I think that we're always thinking, how can we make this better? And if there is something I've done not exactly right as an entrepreneur, is I've overdone it a little bit too much, right? Because I'm always trying to make it better and better. And at some point you have to think, well, am I going to charge for the extra bells and whistles? Is this adding, value to the invoice, not just to, what I do? And,
Right.
and it's a balance, because I want to give my clients the best I can, but, I have to make money. I forget that.
Mm-hmm.
So if anything, it's, but that gives us also the latitude to always think about how can we make anything better. And in times like this, I was just in the morning talking with my one of my commercial partners in the US, and we're just kind of like spinning and pivoting and changing what we do, because we need to adapt. So I think that attitude has helped me, stay relevant and stay with the market too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, in my opinion, that's the true entrepreneurial spirit, because I read something a while ago that the symbol of power and strength was always like the rock, because the rock can, drive through everything, go over everything. But I read something, it was some years ago, but it was like the true symbol of strength is sometimes water, because water is permeable. It can go around, it can go up, it can go down. It knows how to pivot, it knows how to change. And I think that so many times people just think that this is the way it always has been, this is how it's going to be, I don't know how to change. But I think when you have that entrepreneurial spirit, as I like to call it, you're able to pivot, you're able to change, you're able to make those adjustments, and you feel and that there is a solution. So I think when you have that spirit, not only does it help you in times like this, but I think it helps out in so many other aspects and times in life.
And just to take your analogy a step further, is like, yeah, we were all floating very happy in a lake, in a dam, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the dam just blew up, and now it's a river, and it's a
Yeah.
fast river, and it's moving, and you don't know where you're gonna end. So
Yeah.
you might be at the top now, and the current changes. So that's how I feel. So I think that ability to be entrepreneurial, it's more useful than ever.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit and I wanted to
Mhm.
ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So this could be like an Apple book or a habit that you have, but what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
Exercise.
Mhm.
Exercise. I do many things, but I would say if I had to pick one, it just makes wonders to the mind, not only the body, to my mind. I would say if you feel stuck, if you feel depressed, if you feel even lonely, like a good walk, go for a run. A bike ride is my favorite, but exercising, it's always good to reset the mind and make you feel good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that mind aspect because I think so many times when we hear exercise, sometimes we just think that, okay, we're working out our body. But a lot of times when you're going up that hill, if you're bike riding or you're pushing up the weight and you get over that quote unquote hurdle and you do that on a regular basis, a lot of times that trains your mind and strengthens your mind as well too. So it not only does it help us out, physically, it helps us out emotionally, it helps us out mentally, and so many of those other aspects that we sometimes miss and forget.
And one of the things that, part of what we call emotional technology, part of this new knowledge on how the brain and mind works that has been more, strong is that there is a very clear body-mind connection.
Mhm.
And so what you eat can affect your mindset, right? So, and how you feel affects your body, what the things that you think end up affecting your body too. So you're totally on the ball, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to be very aware of what we're putting into our body, whether we're eating, listening, working out, those things that we're doing, because they manifest itself in how we think, what we do, and what happens sometimes in our businesses and our lives. So I wanted to ask you now for what I call a CEO nugget, and this could be a word of wisdom or a piece of advice. It might be something you would tell a client, or if you hopped into a time machine, you might tell your younger business self.
When I was in business school, I learned this concept of sunk costs. And there was
Mhm.
even I don't know if you ever heard it, but it's a finance concept that you should not look at a project in terms of what you already put in it.
Mhm.
It's all forward looking, right? So if you're building a house, it's not how close you are to termination. It's always how much more money do I need to finish it, and what am I going to get for that? So if you start building the wrong house, at some point it's better to start over, right? And that's a really important concept to keep in mind when you're pivoting and when you're innovating, because it's very easy to say, but I've been doing this for so long. Yeah, but that's not what the future is. So, you have to be willing to start over if that's what your business needs.
Yeah, and that's an extremely powerful concept. And I have, heard about it a little bit. I think it's something that it's always sometimes a struggle for somebody that is an innovator, somebody that's usually passionate about what it is that they do, because you continue to drive and drive and drive and want it to work, but you put so much into it that it's hard to sometimes divorce yourself from it and say, hey, not only may this not work out how you want, but you might also be blocking yourself from the other thing that you should be doing or focusing time or resources on that really can be successful and go with the river, as we kind of talked about before.
Yeah.
So we really have to understand, like, hey, this is this present moment, and kind of divorce ourselves to some degree from those sunk costs, those costs that we've already put in, and make that pivot, make that adjustment, and move on to sometimes the next thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. So now I wanted to ask you my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. And we're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on this show. So Javier, what does being a CEO mean to you?
I think being a CEO is extremely lonely because it's important to listen to everyone, but this is where the box stops,
Mhm.
right? So you can ask many people. Everyone or most people have something to offer, but at the end of the day, you have to make the call. So I think it has this double edge of, you are the one who calls the shots, but at the same time, you are the one who calls the shots. So like, it's your responsibility. So it's a very unique thing. I would recommend everyone to be their CEO, or to think about yourself the CEO, even of your own life, right? I once heard a wonderful talk about how we are branding ourselves. So, there is the brand Javier. So, I'm the CEO of Javier Company. So, to think about that, and that's a little bit how it is being CEO of a company. You make the decisions, or at least you think you do.
Yeah. No, I absolutely love that perspective. As you said, the kind of the starts with you, but I love too that how you kind of talked about, you know, asking questions, sometimes paying attention to what people are saying, but at the same time you make the decision. Because there's this Henry Ford quote where he said that if I would have polled everybody and asked them what they wanted me to build, they would have said I wanted a faster horse, not a car. So you sometimes you have to make that decision, and it's a double-edged sword. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But you know, like we kind of talked about, you be the CEO of your business, your organization, even your life, and make those decisions and understand that the buck kind of ultimately stops with you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that definition, that perspective. I appreciate your time even more. What I wanted to do is pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional you can let our readers and listeners know, and of course, how best they can get a hold of you and find out about all the awesome things you're working on.
Well, I think that we all need to think differently in terms of we need to build a better world, and this is the time to do it. And it's only going to happen if we do it. If not, we're going to get shoved we're going to get the old thing back again. So there is an election coming. There is a lot of business in bankruptcy. There is a lot of flux in the system. So this is the time to start new things. So to everyone out there who has the entrepreneurial bug, go for it. Partner up with someone. This is the time to start. And it's not an easy journey, but I never look back. And I've had hard moments, very hard moments, but it's totally worth it. And I think everyone should, give it a try, especially if you're thinking about it, because the world needs it more than ever.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate that. And Javier, people that want to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to do that?
So thehouseofpurpose.com, that's where we have our website. That's, everything that we do is there. We also have a Twitter account, House of Purpose, and we're also on LinkedIn. So check us out, and you can contact us there, and, just be happy.
Absolutely. And we will definitely have those links and information in the show notes. But I appreciate that kind of last reminder as well, too, because so many times I say like the entrepreneur and again, the CEO, as we all can definitely be, sometimes it's like an artist. And so many times if you want to see the world in a different way, you have to kind of paint the picture. You have to kind of do the work. And I think it's on us as individuals, as leaders, as people of and within society to do that and to take the steps to do that. So I appreciate that charge. I appreciate that reminder and of course your time. And I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you. You too. Thanks for having me.